Hello and welcome back in to the Touchdown NFL podcast. First of all, apologies for us missing a show last week, but we're back this week with myself, Lee Wakefield, Tayyib, and Tom as well to bring you all the talking points from week 8 in what was an interesting week with no bias for any teams. All the teams in action this week and a few upsets, a few ups and downs. A few things that we've got to talk about, and obviously a load of QB injuries as well, which really shook the league up as well on the eve of the deadline as we're recording today. And we'll maybe talk a little bit about that. But how are you guys doing? We got obviously an upset Falcons fan, a happy Chargers fan. I don't think we've had a week yet, have we, where all three of us have been happy so far. And obviously, Tayyib, your boy's playing tonight. So we're waiting. But like I say, we've not had a good week all round, have we, yet, since we started this season?
About a pretty rubbish weekend, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I haven't told you on the podcast. I've been keeping it to myself. I'm a Man United season ticket holder, obviously, because I don't live in Manchester. I was at the derby yesterday. That was awful. It was chucking it down, freezing on the way back, getting to the coach, and the 4G isn't working because everyone's on their phone. So I had to wait until I get on the motorway to get the Falcons up, and then they're just useless. My dad sat next to me, just peering over my shoulder every now and again. Are they winning? It's like, no, they're not. They're not really doing anything, actually, Andy. I don't know what to tell you. Just an awful weekend. I'll be honest with you. I could have been better, but I hope for better days ahead.
Yeah, that's not a good day yesterday, is it? Because it was a kind,
really optimistic.
Kind 3-0, wasn't it, as well?
I was having a chat with, I went up with my dad, we were having a drink beforehand, and he goes, I had a dream last night. And I was like, oh yeah, go on then. He goes, yeah, we're going to win 2 or 3-0. I couldn't remember, we're going to win 2 or 3-0. And then on the way back, I was like, yeah, maybe I misremembered it, but yeah. Anyway, Tayyib, how was your weekend?
It wasn't as miserable as what yours sounded like. Mine was pretty dire. I've been basically unwell this entire weekend, so like, don't get me wrong, like there was loads of sport on, so like one of the good things about being unwell is you don't have to go anywhere. Not that I like going anywhere anyways. It rained sideways for like 10 days straight here, but there was loads of sport on, so I could watch it all. Newcastle didn't win, but I'd take the point. I've still got the Lions today, but yeah, so like mine's been probably better than yours, Thomas. I mean, what can I say anymore about the United thing? Like, not to get too, like, what's the win for so much of my life? I'm like, there's nothing left to be said. It's like they just aren't very good. But we'll move on with
that. That's the thing. I can't even complain because, like, forever it's been good. And then, like, the moment we start, like, we get tickets, we get season tickets, it all just falls apart. Like, Ferguson leaves, and then it's like, oh, loads of tickets available. Let's go and get a season ticket. We'll start going. It's going to be great. And then it's just like week after week. Some of it's okay. Well, you see us win a trophy or two, but yeah, man. Anyway, that's not that podcast. Don't want to talk about United anymore. Let's talk about something else. Yeah.
Let's talk about something else then, because we are ready to talk about the NFL rather than the Premier League, or it'd be nice to be in the Premier League anyway. But yeah, less of that. Even less of that, the better. Thomas, kick us off with your biggest takeaway or talking point from this weekend then, because you got an interesting one, I think.
Biggest one of the week, Packers might not be very good. I was I'm not going to say I was high on them before the season, but I was very much in the camp of they have been pretty good for as long as I've been a follower of this sport. I mean, you don't get a team that follows up one Hall of Fame quarterback with another Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, obviously, Tayyib knows a lot more about the Packers than I do, I think. But the Packers right now are just in a really deep hole. And I don't necessarily think it's entirely a quarterback issue. I mean, Jordan Love seems pretty okay to me. He's certainly rough still, but he's not exactly throwing to superstar receivers, and there isn't really a run game, so to speak. They just played the Vikings, were missing their best receiver and got slapped. They haven't won since the end of September, I don't think. So what's that? Four games on the spin. At no point has it looked like they. I mean, apart from that Broncos game is a weird one. But at no point does it look like they could stop losing. And I'm kind of at the point halfway-ish through the season where I'm kind of calling it and saying they're just not a very good team right now. They are kind of hamstrung financially and obviously talent-wise. I feel like the talent levels in that team were brought up by Aaron Rodgers being really good. You look at the team and you don't know where the wins are going to come from. You don't know where the points are going to come from. They need something to kind of go their way, just a bit of a spark. They're not necessarily out of. I mean, the playoff thing is wide open until the very last week now because there are a billion playoff teams. But they need something to go their way, and there's just nothing happening. Every week, LaFleur stands up at the podium and just sort of says, it starts with me. And at some point, you've kind of got to go, okay, it starts with you, but what are you going to do to make sure that it stops with you? And it doesn't seem like they're kind of doing anything or changing it. It's a weird situation because I still think they can be something this season. I don't necessarily think we're looking at a division winner anymore, but I'm certainly looking at a team that can cause some issues for other teams and maybe put themselves in a position to have something of success at the end. But what are the, going back to my favorite question, what are the Packers? Because they're not very good right now, I don't think, and I don't think they're going to. I don't see how they can turn it around. I came away from this weekend and I thought, I don't know what they are. I don't know how they fix themselves, and I think they might be bad. I think they're bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be a transition year, wasn't it? With obviously the transition to Jordan Love. You're right, our colleague Jack Brentnall, he's a Packers fan who's tweeting out today, rewatched the game. He's of the opinion that he doesn't think Jordan Love's the problem, but they need talent like on the offense, don't they? They're just falling apart in every sort of unit of that offense. And the defense on its best day, when it's fully healthy, can be good, but they've only got 2 wins this season. They've lost 2 games against the 2 most recent losses against the Raiders and the Broncos, teams that you think even like a mediocre Packers team needs to be knocking this team off. And I know the Broncos just beat the Chiefs, but I think there's some extenuating circumstances from that. They're looking ahead. The Packers have got the Rams, the Steelers, and the Chargers in the next 3. I wouldn't say any of those 3 teams that they've got coming up are great. But then again, I'm going to ask you guys, how many wins are they going to get out of those? And I'm not going to say that anyone's going to say they're going to win all 3 of those games, even though they're all winnable, right?
Yeah,
No,
I mean, the Steelers game already just looks like a miserable game on paper already.
It really does.
You know what I mean?
It really does.
I feel for Steelers fans because it's like they've got like a defense that's playing out of its mind, and it's like our offense can literally not do anything at all at any point. I think with the Packers, do you know what it is? It sounds bad saying it, but welcome to the rest of us. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not
talking of what we were talking about with Man United.
It's not normal. What they've done, that's probably one of the most, because even when for example Indianapolis had Peyton Manning, and then obviously they were fortunate enough to transition to Andrew Luck, but they didn't carry on winning. Obviously the Brady transition in New England hasn't quite worked out. It's not normal for teams like the 49ers never replaced Joe Montana. The Dolphins didn't replace Dan Marino for 40 years. It's not normal for what Green Bay did with Rodgers and Brett Favre. So part of me is you know what, you might just need to take your medicine. I don't think Jordan Love is a problem. It's just kind of, it's one of those he's learning his game. And they've got a few injuries, Bakhtiari got hurt, Elton Jenkins got hurt, Aaron Jones has been in and out with a hamstring injury. So the kind of experienced guys that you're expecting to lead that offense with Rodgers now gone, have been kind of plagued with injury or been in and out of the team. And then the rest of the team is just really young. It is just an inexperienced team with an inexperienced quarterback. Like I said, it's one of them where I just feel like they're probably just going to have to be patient. With it, I don't think it's going to change this season because with some of the injuries and how ineffective or inexplosive the run game is, it's probably just going to make life more difficult for Jordan Love. And then, as I said, the other guys, your Watsons and your Romeo Dobbs and your Musgraves, those guys are trying to figure out their own careers. Do you know what I mean? And find their own place within the NFL. And it's hard then to have that and then think, well, I've also got to be there for my young quarterback as well. I just think it's a situation where I thought they'd be better just again, I thought like institutionally the Packers will just be like they'll be a 9-win team, they'll be fine. Like Jordan Love's not going to be amazing, he's not going to be terrible, he'll kind of be solid middle of the pack, and there'll be something to build upon. But I think it just shows like if you've got a lot of like inexperienced players, and your core kind of pieces are either getting older or injured or playing poorly, it's hard for everybody else to pick the pieces up. Um, it's just a difficult situation for them. As I said, it's one of them that you're gonna have to sit in and be patient and see, like going forward, what it kind of works itself out as.
How much of this goes back to the sort of the draft classes that they've had since sort of Matt LaFleur? Matt LaFleur came in as the sort of the head coach, because I mean, there was every single year it was a discussion over whether or not this is going to be the Packers draft a first round wide receiver, and every single year they just take some rando defender. It feels to me like they've just kind of been, they're just not, they just weren't prepared for the transition away from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, and he's not to give him too much sort of sympathy or whatever, because like he's been given an extension without playing a game, kind of thing. It was kind of like he's in a good place, but like it almost feels like he's been set up to fail a little bit. Just the way that the organization kind of handled that move without really putting anything in place to kind of help him. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird transition that, again, you pointed out, loads of teams have made transitions from great quarterbacks into the next generation, and it's not worked out necessarily. But this one feels especially weird considering they've had their next quarterback on the books for the last 3 years. Like they must have known what was going to come, kind of thing.
Suppose it was that thing though. They fell into
the. Sorry, go on, Tayyib.
Oh yeah, like sorry about that. They fell into the trap of, I suppose, trying to win now while they had Rodgers, and then also trying to kind of half, because you're right. Like they had Jordan Love, they drafted him in 2020. They could have already started thinking we'll attack these drafts. You know, the mindset of Jordan Love's going to be our starting quarterback. But for as long as Rodgers was still there, you're probably thinking, well, he can take care of the offense. We've got Davante Adams, we've got Aaron Jones, like we'll be okay. And then that's probably why they went down the trap of like drafting a lot of these defenders high up in the first round, because they're thinking, well, as long as we've got Rodgers, like, you know, our offense is going to be like, even if he's not at his best, it'll be a top 10 at worst, you know. And then he was looking, you know, that he won 2 MVPs and he was exceptional for them in those 2 seasons. But as I said, I feel like they've probably tried to play both sides of it, and now where they've ended up with a little bit of like a situation where there's not like a natural leader on that offense anymore. And probably the other thing as well is once Rodgers stayed and then they gave him the contract, they couldn't afford Davante Adams' contract. Do you know what I mean? And like, for as much as like we talk about young quarterbacks, like they all needed, even the great ones, like, you know, Joe Montana needed Jerry Rice, Peyton Manning needed Marvin Harrison, you know, like even the great quarterbacks needed like that A-grade receiver. Green Bay did have one, but then once they gave Rodgers that contract and Bakhtiari that contract, they couldn't afford Davante Adams, so they had to trade him away. And so, like, that's kind of a knock-on effect. But I think it comes from the fact that they probably ended up in a situation where Rodgers was always winning the PR war, because ultimately so many people like are obsessed with Aaron Rodgers and kind of follow this cult of Rodgers. He was always winning the PR war of, well, these guys never ever help me. I'm expected to do everything by myself. And so then I think they tried to kind of almost appease him, and it's probably left the roster in a little bit of a lopsided way, because they've got lots of experienced defenders and a lot of guys who are in their prime, and an offense that, like, outside of the offensive line, it's just full of young players. And it's kind of, as I said, they're all trying to figure out, and like having watched a lot of like rebuilding Lions teams with a lot of young players, it's hard for them to all work it out together at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like you need, you know, like I think one of the great things that guys like Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes or Josh, like there was experienced guys around them when they came into the team.
Yeah.
Where like with Jordan Love, as I said, you've got a load of second-year receivers or first-year receivers. Your 2 most experienced offensive linemen are out, and then, as I said, like your best running back and probably your best offensive weapon has been in and out of the team with a hamstring injury. So, like everyone's just kind of like, well, we're all just figuring it out together, and it's not like you've got that one guy or that two guys that you can go to or just make a play for us, because everybody else is just finding it difficult as well. And it's a rubbish situation for Jordan Love, because I actually think he's pretty good. Like, I think he's been okay. But you're following 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterback, and ultimately people are going to get restless and people are going to say, well, he's not very good, which, as I said, I think is pretty unfair, but that's the world we live in.
It is. And you know what? I think the defense for all the first round picks and all the high draft capital they spent on it is pretty good when it's at full health. So, if they can get some talent around Jordan Love in the medium to short term, then they should be okay generally. Maybe that's all we were all thinking coming into the season, like you said before, Tom. Like, they're going to be 8, 9, 10 win team just because they're the Packers.
Yeah,
and I think they could be that because they do have a good defense if they stay healthy, and they've got a reasonable amount of talent. If that can come in, and there we go. That can be where they sort of build from. That can be their platform that they start to build from over the next few years with Jordan Love as the QB. But kind of meshing what you guys have both said together, Tayyib, maybe you're right as well, that they just have to take the medicine for a year, and this is it. This is just the year where they just have a bit of a rubbish year, and that's that. Maybe they could do with a weapon like AJ Brown, and that brings me on to my point. I've written that I'm ready to have the conversation on whether AJ Brown is the best wide receiver in the league. I know we talk about Justin Jefferson a lot. I know that Tyreek Hill is become this super weapon with his speed, but AJ Brown over the last 6 games has had over 125 yards in each of those games. I would say on this Eagles team that is 7-1 with the best record in the NFL, he's their most dominant player, not just on offense, but their most dominant player, full stop. He catches absolutely everything. He's built like a linebacker. He bullies people at the catch point, and just everything seems to run through him. He's the go-to guy. I know that the Eagles, have another offensive meta play in the brotherly shove. That's obviously got a lot of press over the past few weeks. But AJ Brown, what are we saying? Am I right to start this conversation? Is he up there with Justin Jefferson? And I know you guys are kind of both looking to the ceiling now because I don't know. I was thinking about this as I was watching the Eagles yesterday, in that it's not that hot of a take, is it?
So I watched a clip from whatever the last Eagles game was, where they're wearing those nice green jerseys, and there's I think it was maybe one of those mic'd up things where Jalen Hurts goes over to AJ Brown and he says something to the effect of, I look up and I see number 11 streaking along, and I swear to God I saw Julio Jones. And they've got Julio Jones now. They've got him, but they've got also Julio Jones too, which is pretty cool. I don't think it's a particularly hot take. I do think that there's something to it. And you're right in that there are a lot of kind of, Justin Jefferson, when he's fit, is probably the closest contender as far as I'm concerned. I think Jamar Chase, when he gets going, and when Joe Burrow kind of warms up, as we saw, that pair can be sort of incredible. I think Tyreek Hill has got like 1,000 yards like halfway through the season, so that's pretty special. But we're like in a bit of we're in that like an in-between period between sort of phases. Like the last phase of great receivers was Julio, Antonio Brown, and I guess DeAndre Hopkins. Who's still really good, unfortunately. And now we're in this bit where we're transitioning away to the new guys, and AJ Brown's got to be in that conversation. He just, you put him in the right positions, nobody's going to be able to cover him. And you put him in other positions, and nobody's going to be able to cover the other great receivers that they've got. He's somebody that has to be accounted for at all times, probably by multiple defenders. And if you're a defensive coordinator, you've got to be alert to that at all times, and that's going to affect how you rush the quarterback or drop into coverage, and you're just constantly trying to game plan around one player while also forgetting they've got really good players everywhere else. That's the sort of, when you talk about the great players, it's the players that you have to be aware of at every single moment they're on the field, and he is that right now. And his run at the moment, is it like I should have written this down. Is it over 100 yards for the last like 7 games or something stupid? It's crazy. I'm so annoyed that I didn't pick him in either of my fantasy teams, and I ended up going for Smith
Who in
just to leave
itself
him on
is
the
like
bench.
one of the
He's
best
really,
second
he's
receivers in
really
the
good.
league, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't go wrong.
But yeah, I'm willing to allow the argument. I think there's something to it.
Say what you
He's my favorite receiver to watch. Purely and simply, like Thomas hit the nail on the head. Like Julio Jones. Like I always think of, obviously, like I watched a lot of Calvin Johnson in terms of that kind of physical, almost bully ball receiver that could run every route. Didn't matter if you double covered him, he'd still be able to get up there and catch the ball and box people out, kind of basketball style. And I always thought like Julio Jones was kind of like the natural like successor to Megatron in terms of that similar physique, similar type of dominant style of play. AJ Brown's kind of becoming that. Like they don't win that game yesterday without him. Do you know what I mean? Like Washington gave it to them. Yeah, like Washington really took it to them. Like they don't win that game without AJ Brown. Obviously it's weird because obviously I see a lot of Justin Jefferson. So I'm always like he is exceptional. It's one of them like you're like recency bias. He's been injured. The Vikings obviously 4-4 haven't played as well as the Eagles.
Yeah.
What I would say, like in terms of like in form, like right now, there's not like a like. And also the other thing I like about him is like Tyreek Hill's kind of a weird receiver and that he's not really built like a normal wide receiver, like that number one X receiver. Like you always think of like Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, those types of guys who've kind of been dominant in the various eras that they played in. AJ Brown is of that ilk. And right now, like I was reading on Sports Illustrated, like you wouldn't even be surprised if you got like MVP votes and things like that because I think he's the best offensive player currently on the Eagles, and the Eagles are 7-1. They got the best record in the game. He's had what 6 consecutive games with over 125 receiving yards. Like it's just absurd what he's doing. Like he's on pace to break Megatron's record in terms of the receiving yards record. So like anytime you're in that kind of conversation, like you've got to be right up there as perhaps the top one, top two receivers in the game. And it's still mad. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Still mad that the Titans didn't pay him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just unbelievable. Like what? Like as I said, you don't mess like okay, fair enough. Like you don't pay running backs. You got like a world class wide receiver entering his prime, and you didn't want to pay him. And he's gone to Philadelphia, and he's been even better.
Yeah, he has got better since he's gone to Philly as well. And with how people make the hierarchy, don't they, of the positions? With quarterback, left tackle, edge, corner, wide receivers needs to be part of that tier one conversation because, like you say, you've talked about AJ Brown being on pace to break Megatron's run. Obviously, the talk 2 weeks ago was Tyreek Hill's on that pace. Justin Jefferson went pretty close last year, as close as someone's been for quite a long time. The top echelon of wide receiver is just as important as any position. Those top four. They are
game
right.
winners.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you look at like every successful team in like NFL history, like the 49ers had Jerry Rice, like the undefeated Patriots had Randy Moss, the division winning Falcons had Julio Jones, like Arizona when they went to the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner had Larry Fitzgerald. Like there's always been one kind of like really good wide receiver, like they are game winners. As I said, like you look at the Bengals, for example, the first year Jamar Chase comes along, suddenly they're in the Super Bowl. Like, it's one of those where, or like that mad Bills Vikings game from last year, Justin Jefferson makes that catch. Without that catch, they probably don't win that game. And he's one of like that elite group that could make that type of catch. And and AJ Brown's become that now, and it's so difficult to stop him. As I said, like the only thing that I think teams can hope for is maybe he cools down a little bit. Because right now, like the on FIFA Ultimate Team, like when they do like the informed cards, like he'd be like 99 rated. That's what he's playing like right now. Like Washington just didn't have an answer for him, and they played a pretty good game overall. They just couldn't stop him.
Yeah, be interesting to see how he gets on because, like you say, MVP votes and things like that will come his way if he can keep this run up, and especially if the Eagles have team success as well. It always contributes to these things, I feel like. But yeah, one to watch, absolutely. I think we're going to have a few mentions of this sort of game and this sort of theme. But we want to talk about Will Levis, Tayyib, and the Titans.
Yeah. So like before, like I wasn't one of them people that said like Will Levis would be drafted in the top 10. Like I don't really do big boards, but like in my own kind of mental head, I thought he'd be picked anywhere between 20 and 32. I thought that's kind of where he should have been if you ranked it out with everybody else. Obviously he didn't, he fell, but I thought like he was kind of a late round one prospect. But what I don't like is kind of, and this always goes back to the draft being like the most ridiculous reality TV show, is kind of like the entire 2 months of like the draft, like people mocking this kid. Well, that's what he is. He's a kid. Like he's leaving university to try and fulfill his dream of playing in the NFL. Listen, I always thought he had a big arm. He was strong. Obviously, you can tell he's built. Built pretty well. He's certainly not Jared Goff. Do you know what I mean? He's been in the weight room a number of times. He's got a big arm. He's kind of panicky when the pocket collapses, but most young quarterbacks tend to be. But what I didn't like is kind of how basically for 2 months in the draft and then kind of on draft night, basically just became a figure of fun. Like it was almost like everybody decided to pile in on this kid just because like nobody drafted him or he was kind of different. And I hate the draft process where people are like, "Well, this kid's not a good teammate." Well, how do you know? Do you know what I mean? Because you weren't there at the University of Kentucky. Do you know, like the CJ Stroud had it the same, where like people were saying, "Oh, the kid doesn't test very well." But how do you know? Like it really annoys me. Like we kind of, because none of these guys are ever the finished prospect.
Mm.
When you know what I mean? Like none of them are. Like no rookie's ever won an NFL MVP award. Certainly not a quarterback. Like it takes time, and even experienced quarterbacks, it can take time for them to figure it all out. So none of these kids are perfect, and yet like we kind of hyper critique or like personality, almost character assassinate these guys
That's
for
true.
no particular reason. And it kind of really annoyed me. And like I said, I wasn't like, if you asked me to say like, oh, who were the best four quarterbacks, like Levis would have been my fourth. I had him behind Anthony Richardson, Stroud, and Bryce Young. I'm not going to sit back and renege on that, but I just thought, good for him. Like he played really well yesterday. Don't get me wrong, the Titans put him in like a brilliant situation. The Falcons didn't really get any pressure on him. There were a few kind of occasions, and you could see like that's when he becomes nervous and he becomes panicky. But when he had time, made good decisions. He's got a rocket arm. We all knew that, you know what I mean? And DeAndre Hopkins bailed him out a few times on a few balls that were kind of a little bit errant. But I just thought, good for you, because he became kind of the butt of all jokes in April when the draft came. And then, like a lot of people, and I had it when Malik Willis was starting. It was like, is Levis really that bad that he can't even get ahead of Malik Willis? But like Willis had already been there for a year. Do you know what I mean? So he's probably already a year ahead in terms of his mental development of the Titans' offense. I just thought, fair play to Levis for taking all that criticism, for having basically having the entire NFL world basically call you like every name under the sun when you're waiting. And as I said, and I get it, like ESPN are always going to have the camera on the table, and he sat there looking like a mug. Do you know what I mean? While 32 teams passed up on him, it's pretty just soul destroying. I'd find it difficult to come back from that. And to be fair, he didn't come back. He went home the following day, and the Titans drafted him. But fair play to him yesterday for like just going out there and having fun. Like this is a game at the end of the day, and like he got to fulfill his dream. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be an MVP or he's going to be terrible. I ain't got a clue. He played one NFL game, you know what I mean, against an inconsistent Falcons team. So like I don't know what that means. Mike White balled out in the first game of his career. He doesn't start anywhere now. So like it's neither here nor there. But like fair play to him for at least showing like what he's about. He kind of had that toughness. And what I did like is they booed Malik Willis, which again I really hated this. Like the Titans fans booed Malik Willis on the very first snap of the game. I think they had like a backup. Yeah, they had a backup center in, because then afterwards there were a few like high snaps as well. And to be fair, Levis was good enough to keep a hold of them. But there was a high snap. It went over Willis's head. They turned the ball over. And they booed him off the field, which I thought, this is really unfair. Like this kid's in his second season as an NFL, and he's playing with like a backup center. And Levis, to be fair, came out and defended Willis and told the fans, you know what, like, that's not really fair. Like to show that kind of like maturity and that kind of like awareness of what's happening to your teammates when he didn't have to. Let's be honest. Like most NFL players wouldn't say anything in the press to that. They'd probably just say something in the dressing room, like just shake it off or something. He didn't have to. So like, fair play to Will Levis for like at least showing, you know what, like he deserves to be in the NFL. He played a really good game. And when it mattered most, he backed up his own teammate. And the same guy that's trying to take his job, because for as long as Tannehill's injured, it's open season between Willis and Levis. Obviously, probably not anymore. but it was that particular week. So like, fair play to Will Levis for kind of confounding a lot of the negativity around the draft process. And as I said, like, I hate the process where it becomes like we become so obsessed with putting these like young guys down. Do you know what I mean? And it's like none of them are the finished product. Like none of them are. That's kind of why they're drafted. And if you're coming out at 20 years old, out of the University of wherever, and you're ready to play in the NFL and be an All Pro all the time, good luck to you. But in my opinion, it doesn't really happen a lot. Do you know what I mean? So like that was like kind of my thing. From yesterday, it was like fair play to Will Levis. Like if I had a cap, I'd doff it now.
Just to touch on the sort of the character assassin, I made no secret over the last 3 or 4 years or whatever. I have no idea what's going on in the college game, like at all. It's not easily accessible for me. I'm not giving up my Saturdays. I'm already unpopular enough as it is in this flat with the amount of sport that I watch. So I'm not adding another day of American football. But when it came to Will Levis back in end of April, I couldn't tell you a single thing about how he played in college. The only things I knew about him were that he ate banana skins and drank mustard mayonnaise in his coffee, and like that's the only thing that was available for me, the layman, kind of thing. Like, you can pick up bits and pieces. He's got a rocket arm and that, but like that's a failing on the draft process. I should have been a company man and said, but the touchdown really helped me out. But no, I'm not going to lie, I really didn't know much about him. But he looked really good yesterday. Again, Falcons inconsistent, whatever, a couple of injuries, really horrible injury to our best defender. But that's not going to take away from the fact that he threw 4 touchdowns in his debut. He took on a team that it has statistically one of the better defenses in the NFL right now, and at no point looked particularly phased by it. Fair play to him, like you say. I know they're playing again this week. It sounds like he's going to be starting again sort of this week because they now have that sort of cushion to give Tannehill a bit more time to help her to recover and whatever. But they're kind of back in the conversation, I suppose, in the AFC. And if he plays well again this week, then we'll see where that goes next week and the week after, and hopefully he'll have a bit of an NFL career to kind of look back on that draft process and kind of go, man, that was. Hopefully he will have the experience to kind of call it out in 3 or 4 years' time. I'd really like that, because you're right, it is deeply unfair for players who I know they've spent the majority of their, I say the majority, they spend the entirety of their college experience in the spotlight, and then they come into the NFL and they remain in the spotlight, and that's got to do so much to your development as a human being, that if you could just like kind of call it out and just sort of say, look, this isn't right, this isn't fair. Hopefully it can be a change for good moving forward. But yeah, like you say, he played really well in his debut, in his first ever game in the NFL, and you got to give a lot of credit to him for that.
Yeah, absolutely. The first QB to throw 4 touchdowns in his debut since Marcus Mariota did the same for the Titans, which was in 2015. So yeah, no, a really good performance, really good start to his NFL career. Quick question before we move on to our games of the week: who is the Titans starting QB week 1 next year?
Oh,
just a quick one-word answer. You don't have to go into like I'm putting you on the spot. You don't need to give a big analysis of this.
Levis.
I still think Tannehill. Just like Vrabel seems to like Tannehill.
I'll go Levis. I think they'll move on. They need to. Don't they? They need to go into that John Love era.
Yeah.
Into that next step. I think. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. I just wanted to kind of put you guys on the spot. I like to do that every now and then. Let's move on into the games of the week then. And I think I'll kick off with this one, actually, with a game that I watched yesterday evening in the late slate, which was the Bengals versus the 49ers in, well, it's not San Francisco, it's Santa Clara, but whatever. Joe Burrow's back. I mean, Kieran, this has been, music to the ears of producer Kieran as a Bengals fan and a Joe Burrow stan. But yeah, I think they are back. He was messaging me through this game, asking me if I saw the the triple escape early on, which I did. And, it's typical Joe, isn't it? He's back. And it's good to see, obviously, the Chargers aren't going to be doing anything this year, so it kind of doesn't really make any difference to my fandom at this point. But it's kind of good to see the good players being good, isn't it? It's good to kind of have these players not hampered by injury. And, Joe Burrow obviously has been, in the early throes of training camp and stuff of that calf injury, and it's has affected him seemingly until Sunday. Able to take snaps on the center, able to sort of give that extra dimension to the Bengals run game, which hasn't been there, and able to, do Joe Burrow things like escape ridiculous situations and still make the throw, still able to make plays with his legs. I just think this is great for the NFL as it moves into the second part of the season, second half of the season. The AFC North is well and truly wide open. The Ravens are 6-2. The rest of the other teams are all neck and neck on 4 wins. As much as the Ravens have been good and probably are the best team in that division right now, 2 wins doesn't seem insurmountable, especially when they're going to have to play the Bengals and everyone else is going to beat each other up. So I think this is just really hotting up. And, we can talk a little bit less about the 49ers. We seem to talk about them quite a lot. It's a bad loss for them. Brock Purdy, a couple of interceptions, didn't play too well, on that score, but seemingly seems to have come out with a lot of the media guys over the other side of the pond saying that he played quite well despite that. I'm not too sure. But I want to focus on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I think they're well and truly back in the race for the playoffs. I think they'll be there or thereabouts as a 6th, 7th seed, potentially, like I say, even pipping the Ravens to that divisional title. But like I say, I think it's a good day for the NFL that Joe Burrow's back and just balling out. And obviously Jamar Chase is all the better for it as well with his 10 catches last night. What do you guys thought?
I think it's become clearer over the last couple of weeks that the start of the season for Joe Burrow was very much hampered by the muscle injury that he suffered in sort of over the summer, and the Bengals quite possibly kind of rushed him back into a scenario because they didn't really 100%. Feel like it's. I look at that game, to the San Francisco 49ers, who only 2 weeks ago I was told by a mate of mine who is a 49ers fan, not only are Super Bowl bound, but potentially 20-0 in the process. To go 0-3 in that stretch, I know they've had quite a lot of injuries. I know that, Brock Purdy's still pretty inexperienced, and I feel like I'm going to be a little bit kinder to him than you are. Some of one of the turnovers was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, because he was kind of rolling out and then just kind of handed the ball over. I don't quite know what he was doing with that there, but I think he's playing okay by and large. Weird situation in the week where he was put into concussion protocol midweek and then taken out the day before. Like, that's kind of unprecedented with the way that the concussion protocol is supposed to work. If you're put into the protocol midweek, nobody plays that weekend, and for him to do so, I'm not too sure what's happened there. It's a weird one. I'm not saying that's sort of an excuse. If he's healthy enough to play, he's healthy enough to play, kind of thing. But that's a weird situation that kind of played out. But the Bengals just look really good. And when they've got Joe, he's the first overall pick, like, for a reason. And he makes throws like that only a handful of players can make. And he gets his receivers warmed up. And Jamar Chase looked excellent, I mentioned earlier. I kind of think you're right. I kind of think they're probably back in that conversation. They're the ones chasing the Ravens. And the Ravens are a weird team in themselves. We'll probably get onto that in a bit. But yeah, they're good. They're a good team again. It lasted 6 weeks, but the Bengals are now good again.
Yeah, absolutely.
They got form for this though. Like, I think last season they played a Halloween game on Monday night against Cleveland, and I think they lost and they went back down to 500. And then I think they finished the rest of the regular season, I think, undefeated. I think they won every single game following that point. They went on a tear kind of November and December time to come back and win that division. So they've got the form. Burrow, when he's in that mood, is almost unplayable. Like the 49ers defense is probably stepped off the gas a little bit from when they destroyed Dallas a few weeks ago, but there's still a lot of high quality players on that defense. And Burrow, you can just tell he's back. Like I remember watching the Titans game, the 27-3, and that was when kind of it all seemed like it was going to fall apart. And he couldn't move. Like there was no kind of. I think Burrow's greatness is he's so good at moving inside the pocket. Like he can run if he needs to, and he can kind of evade if he needs to, but he wants to stand in the pocket and deliver, those kind of quick strike passes to his playmakers. He couldn't really do that in Tennessee. It was almost like 3 drops, and then he'd kind of either stop and then fall, or he'd be sacked just because he couldn't move whatsoever, which was mad to think that they played him. Yesterday was like night and day. How kind of clear he was, how precise he was, and then once his footwork's back, he's always going to be really accurate and really good decision maker with the ball. Like those are inherent traits that he has. Do you know what I mean? He's one of the most accurate throwers in the league, and he makes so many good decisions. But once he's got that kind of momentum back in his feet and kind of the confidence back, he looks very, very good. And this is going to be an interesting chase now because they'll fancy it. I suppose the one downside is they've already lost to Baltimore in Cincinnati. So at some point, whenever they do meet again, they're going to have to go to Baltimore and win. But they play like that, they're going to have a chance of beating anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You were bang on. Yeah, they lost to the Browns, and then they didn't lose again until the game against the Chiefs, obviously in the AFC Championship game. So, yeah, like you say, they'll be wishing for exactly the same sort of run now, aren't they? And I think they've got it in them, like you say. So, yeah, one to watch out for, a team to watch, and a bunch of players to watch well on offense. Table, we'll stay with you actually. You've got the New York Derby as your games.
Do you know what it is? I have no idea how the Jets are 4-3 now. Do you know what it is? Amidst all the chaos and the confusion, and Joe Namath saying Zach Wilson's a terrible, terrible player, and this, that, and the other. And somehow the Jets are 4-3. Rodgers is now throwing the ball and walking without crutches. So for as much as I dislike him, whatever kind of bizarre kind of 1960s Woodstock hippie treatment he's on, it's working for him. This was a miserable game, but I think the thing is, for as long as the Jets are without Rodgers, they're almost always going to be ugly one-score games. And to be fair to Zach Wilson, when it mattered the most, he hit 2 big 29-yard passes in the final minutes of that game to get them into field goal range. So fair play to him on that side of things. I think for the Giants, I feel bad for the Giants because everyone's laughing at them this morning for like having 7 yards of offense. But like they've got 5. I was just checking the depth chart. They've got 5 offensive linemen that are on IR. Their 2 tackles missed that game, and Darren Waller left that game partway through it. And then obviously Tyrod Taylor got hurt as well. Like realistically, right? Like there's only so many injuries you can sustain in this league. Like if you have that level of injuries to your offensive line, and then your first and second choice quarterbacks get injured, what are you gonna do? Like Tommy DeVito came in, sounded like the next character for the Mafia PlayStation games. Ran well, didn't throw it very well, but like, what realistically, what are you going to expect? So, from a Giants' perspective, like I kind of just feel bad for them because at this point, it's like we're not even just giving not even the looks going our way anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like the injury looks just ravaged them, and they just look like a shell of a team on offense. And against a very, very good Jets defense, they were never going to score. I think for Wilson, to be fair, they found a formula at least like of winning ugly. And if they can keep doing that at 4-3, they've already got a divisional win over the Bills. The Patriots loss will have hurt them massively because that was a 1-score loss that they had at home, so they've still got to go to New England. But like, at least they've got a formula and a plan now of how to win games. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be pretty dire. I think at one point there was like 8 punts in a row from both teams. I think there was an entire half. There was an entire quarter where a first down was not like made. It basically was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. So like it was a miserable, dire game in pretty horrendous conditions. But like Zach Wilson made less mistakes than the Giants did, and he eventually got them into the situation to win. Yeah, it was pretty it was a strange game. Like it was one of the worst games I've ever watched in terms of like watching it on the Game in 40. You can't really make a lot of comments apart from like as I said, like the Giants haven't really got an offense anymore. It's just like, well, whoever's healthy, just play. So like realistically, what are they gonna do now? Which is kind of where I feel bad for them. Jets defense is still really, really good. Breece Hall's still really good. As I said, they've still got enough pieces there to win a lot of one-score games, and if they can do that until until Rodgers comes back, then they're going to be right in the hunt for a wild card spot. I firmly believe that. Do you know the other thing as well is, like in every overtime game, like if the coin toss is won by your team, fans are like really excited. Like the Giants fans in attendance, the Giants won the toss, and they were like, yeah, but we got no offensive line. We got a third choice quarterback and no Darren Waller. Like, we may as well have lost the coin toss and just gone home a lot earlier. So it was a kind of a miserable wet day and a miserable game. But as I said, bizarrely, the Jets are 4-2. You look at some of the games they've won this season, they've been mad. Like the opening night Monday night game against the Bills was insane. Yesterday was weird. The Eagles game that they won a few weeks ago, like it's kind of all. Nothing really makes sense with the Jets, but they're finding ways to win and they're still playing really hard for Robert Saleh. And as I said, like there's still that thought that Rodgers is going to come back, and if he does, then that place is going to go nuts.
Yeah, I've only got really one really quick thing to say about this. In the Giants, Joe Schoen, pay Saquon Barkley whatever he wants, because that is your offense right now. I'm not even pro paying running backs. I'm quite anti paying running backs. But if you get rid of Saquon Barkley, what the fuck is that offense going to be?
It's not an offense. Like it's
Well, yeah.
Well, it's offensive, is what it is. Come on.
Yeah.
This one completely passed me by. So I obviously didn't get much of. I've got half watching the Falcons on the way back, and every now and then I get a Danny DeVito gif in one of the group chats, and I was like, "What do you want?" I went to go through some of the highlights on lunch earlier, and I obviously checked the score, and I was like, "Do I really want to put myself through this one?" And the answer is no. I have not seen any of this game, so I've got very little to say about this game in particular. What I will say is, you're right in that a team can only sustain so many injuries before they completely fall apart. But they had like a net, like the Giants had a net of -9 passing yards across. That's a record to have have less than no yards is incredible. Sort of passing, and it sounds like they've already given up. I mean, they traded Leonard Williams this evening to the Seahawks, so they're very much in the case in the sort of tear it down and rebuild. Now they're 2-6. There's no real chance of them doing much. Is it just a case of shut down Daniel Jones for the rest of the year and hope for the best? I don't know, but yeah, you're right about the Jets. They're just a weird team. They keep on winning without doing anything particularly spectacular, apart from that one game against the Chiefs where they lost. I don't know who they are. Yeah, it's my favorite question. Who are the Jets? Yeah, I'm not going to go watch this game back. I feel like I've got the flavour of it. Thank you for filling me in. Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's move on into your game then, between another terrible team and one that's quite good, I guess.
Yeah, no, I found this one quite funny. It was the Ravens versus the Cardinals. I'm not saying it's funny because of the game itself as a whole. At no point did it feel like the Ravens were going to lose that game, even when they were down at the start, and even when it kind of looked like they were a bit struggling. I was just like, it's just how they play. Lamar Jackson's going to do something crazy, and they're going to be out of sight. They kind of were out of sight, but then the Cardinals kind of fought back a little bit, and they scored this touchdown towards the end, and it was a really great throw from Dobbs to Brown, I think it was, and they had to go for 2, and they didn't get it. But it's like, man, we're still in this game, sort of. There's enough time on the clock. Let's go for the onside kick. And this is where the game of the week kicks in, because they kick the onside kick, and Nelson Aguilar forgets that he can use his hands. It bounces in front of him, and he just gets wiped out, pushed out of the way. Cardinals recover, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, if only you converted 2 points, you're in with a shout. They try to drive down as quickly as they can, and they get a field goal, and all of a sudden it's a 7-point game, and they try it again, and now Aguilar's been told at that point, you can use your hands. This is a handball sport, and he catches it. But this isn't a game of the week for anything other than I quite like it when it gets a bit weird with the onside kicks. There was a Falcons game a few years ago where they completed 3 onside kicks in the same game and still lost, which is incredible. The best way to lose. It's always so funny to me when the ball just kind of bounces in front of the receiver, and they it doesn't bounce the way they thought it was going to bounce because the ball's weird. And if you're a Ravens a wide receiver coach at that point, you're just kind of saying, is this not like how do you coach that? Yeah, obviously you don't practice onside kicks all the time, but how do you coach watching the ball bounce properly? Again, nothing particularly exciting happened apart from the last 2 minutes, which was blockbuster. And I really enjoyed watching that with my leftover macaroni cheese at 10 o'clock at night. What a way to end the weekend.
I really appreciate the Cardinals this year because as much as they're not very good, they don't want to be good, and they're doing a great job of losing games. But at the same time, they're not that disastrous that they're just getting walked over every week. They're actually like quite entertaining and find a great way to make it close for a bit, and then go, actually, yeah, just we don't want to win anyway, so you just take it.
They remind me of the 2021 Lions, who like fought like hell in every single game, and then would find like some ridiculous, like Justin Tucker's 66-yard whatever field. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of thing the Cardinals are. Interestingly enough, though, like Dobbs got hurt in that game. I was just seeing a quote there. Kyler Murray could return this weekend, so it'll be interesting now, like how that changes. Jonathan Gannon said like if like Dobbs doesn't progress well through this week, it'll either be Murray or Clayton Tune. I'll be honest, Clayton Tune. Who's got anything to say on Clayton Tune? Do you know what I mean? You're a better man than me. So let's be like, just for the story itself, like it'd be interesting because, as I said, it's weird because if they end up with like Caleb Williams or Drake May, like what the hell did they do with Kyler Murray? He's on a massive contract. I don't think he's ever really played to the potential that he probably has. But that, like, I don't know, it's a weird situation. Like, I always felt like the Cardinals were a fun story until like this moment when Murray was ready to come back, and then that's when we'll find out: are they trying to win games? And is he the guy that they're going to stick with, or are they going to leave him, finish with the first overall pick, and move him on? As I said, like we're going to find out soon enough if Josh Dobbs doesn't progress well with his injury.
First of all, like I just said, you're the Cardinals. You're not trying to win. What's the point in playing Kyler Murray? There's no point. Second of all, Clayton Tune went to the University of Houston. I know that much. And third, Kyler Murray, you are a New England Patriot.
Oh, okay. Is Kyler Murray a New England Patriot with Bill Belichick, or is Kyler Murray a New England Patriot with I don't know, just someone else? Josh McDaniels, probably.
Yeah, someone else. I don't think I've said all along. I've like my preseason big take was that this is Bill's last season, and they're going to need someone to kind of bring in the new era. And yeah, like I say, I don't see the point in playing Kyler Murray at all. I've never been a big Kyler Murray guy. I don't think he's as good as some made out, and his attitude and things like that has all played into it. And just get rid, start again, get Caleb Williams or Drake May, whoever you can best take, and move Kyler Murray on. But yeah, I think the Patriots will need some new blood, and he might just be it.
It wouldn't happen with Belichick.
No, it wouldn't. No.
Belichick would never trade for a player that needed a homework clause.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
but I don't think Belichick will be there. So that's it. That is my hot take. My AJ Brown wasn't a hot take, but maybe it's.
Could see it though. Like it was. What was it? Cam Newton a few years ago. That one felt weird. That one felt like Bill Belichick hadn't watched anybody other than the Patriots for about 5 years. Cam Newton's
yeah,
we'll see.
It's interesting. It's an interesting thought, anyway. I mean, he's going to go somewhere, isn't he? He's got to go somewhere because you can't have the really bad Cardinals not picking a quarterback if they get the second overall pick.
Yeah, you're right. Unless, I mean, so here's a scenario for you. What if Kyler Murray does come back in, maybe not this week, but in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and they're really confident in him, and he just like shows out, and they just like, what do you like? They shows out, but they're still losing. What do they do then?
Get more back in a trade for him.
Yeah, like Minnesota could come calling.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Do you know what I mean? Like.
R.I.P. Kirk, by the way. Outside about that.
That is a shame. Like not that kind of move, but that's like going to be his final moment in a purple uniform, which is a pretty sad way to go out. As I said, like Kirk Cousins is another one of those quarterbacks. He can play like he is a very very good quarterback. You can put him in the right situation. He probably took you very close to a championship, but he never really had one thing or another. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of feel bad for him. Hope it's not the end for him, but this is kind of the rubbish thing. Now he's a free agent, but then someone's got to help him recuperate, and then hope he recuperates, and then hand him a contract somewhere. It's kind of the rubbish thing about it, and it was a strange one as well, just because like they always talk about turf. Obviously, Lambeau Field's a natural grass stadium, and it was a non-contact injury. But yeah,
yeah. On that sour note, let's move on into our meme and gifts, which is our fun part of the podcast. Willow, you will start us off.
Yeah, so I've gone with the medal. I don't know what to call it, so I literally googled medal lineup meme, which is just the guy receiving a medal. He gets a bottle of champagne, he's spraying it everywhere, bites his medal, makes sure it's real. He's kissing the girl, and then a camera pulls out and he's facing third place. That's the Denver Broncos, as far as I can see. They got their win over the Chiefs for the first time in like 8 years or something crazy. They beat the Chiefs. A bunch of records that Patrick Mahomes had in that scenario were smashed. Like winning over a team that has multiple games under 500 never happens until that game. Like as the fans are walking out, they've got fireworks and they're playing Taylor Swift, and it's just kind of like, man, you guys are still fourth in your own division, and you're still really bad. What I hate about modern day football, our football, is there's the celebration police, right? Every time somebody scores, and like it's like a 97-minute win, and like the crowd's going berserk. You get idiots online just kind of going, "Well, you're celebrating like you won the league," and it's like, yeah, I know, but it's also a really emotional kind of moment, and you kind of get wrapped up in it. Like let people be happy. But I'm not going to let this one slide, because NFL's not really like that. Like you knew like 20 minutes ago that you'd won, and you don't need to go overboard with your fireworks and your flyover and your big hoo-ah and the horns honking and whatever. It's just, come on, you won, you got your win. Try not to be rubbish next week. But yeah, well done though on winning. It was a very impressive victory.
So you're almost being like the come down with me. Take your sad little win and enjoy your life.
I got no beef with Denver. I don't like it's purely that.
Well, you do.
As far as I'm concerned, Sean Payton organised that entire celebration, and he is solely responsible for this rant against the Broncos. But no, yeah, that it made me giggle when I saw fireworks going off after they got themselves up to 3-5. So yeah.
Tayyib, what about you? What's yours? What's your shout this week?
my one was the Ted, like the film Ted, and the Not Cool Man. Because I'll be honest, right, I don't like relocated franchises. I really it bugs me a lot, and I don't like the fact that the Tennessee Titans used to be the Houston Oilers until they got bought by the Adams family. Not that Adams family. I know it's Halloween and all that. Yeah. But yeah, like the Adams family, and they got moved to Tennessee and obviously became the Tennessee Titans. But the Houston Oilers were a really big deal in Houston. Like they were around for a long, long time. Like they were a big deal. Like they were a famous team. I don't like this idea of the Titans wearing the Houston Oilers' uniforms in a city that they don't play in anymore. I feel like that's a low blow. Could you imagine if somebody bought Blackburn Rovers and then moved them to I don't know, Pudgy? Do you know what I mean? And then then they're wearing a normal kit, and then for 1 week only they come out wearing the blue and white. I'm like, hang on, you stole this team from another town and now you're wearing its kit. This isn't cool. This isn't cool at all. I don't like this whatsoever. And it got even worse today. The NFL's told Houston now that Houston have to alter their throwbacks because Houston's throwbacks are in the colors of the Oilers. And now they've been told that because technically they're not the Oilers, they can't like they can't do that, otherwise the Titans could sue them. So the NFL have asked them, like, you're gonna have to change your throwback uniforms. As I said, I don't like this. I suppose the one thing is, could then the Baltimore Ravens dress like the Cleveland Browns one day?
Or the Colts. Maybe a half and half Browns
You know,
Colts uniform.
like as I said, I don't like it at all. I thought it was a low blow to the Houston Oilers. You know, they're not even the Tennessee
what?
Oilers. I could understand if it was the Oilers, if they were still the Oilers as a franchise name, but they're the Titans. You know what I mean? I don't like this at all.
I'm going to give them one iota of credit in that they decided to wear the jerseys and the uniform of a dead franchise on Halloween weekend. I thought it was the ultimate dress up.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. Mine actually kind of plays into this as well. Mine's the just a generic Throwback Thursday meme, because I really enjoy the throwback uniforms just as a general thing. I get your point. You know, it's weird how they kind of like crossover. You're not really, yeah, I get it. But the Seahawks uniform is a thing of beauty. The Dolphins uniform is a thing of beauty. Obviously, they had 3 that play this weekend. We've had the Falcons, we've had the Eagles recently, we've had the 49ers. They're so nice. I think every Thursday night game, both teams should play in a throwback uniform. It should be called Throwback Thursdays. It's even right there for the NFL to take. And every team should have a throwback uniform for the season. And to kind of take a leaf out the NBA's book and just have like a weekend where every team just plays in a throwback uniform, it'd be great. And obviously, as the NFL liked, it would make loads of money because every team would have a new jersey to sell. Win-win.
Yeah, they tried something with the what was it, the Color Rush uniform.
Some of them were shit though. Let's just say it. Some of them were shit.
Jack's playing in mustard, and it's like, what are we doing? This is
I do it. Really good, but some of them were
yeah,
good.
I'm
Seattle's
fully
bright
on board.
green ones were good.
Yeah, they kept
bright
them,
green.
so much,
yeah, they kept them ones.
I'm fully on board with a throwback weekend. I think I did wrote about it this week. Like, from personal experience, I never get more compliments about the Falcons than when they're wearing the red helmet and the old black jersey with the white pants. That's the best. That's the best combination that they've got. So I'm fully on board with the idea of a throwback. Do other ones. You can have multiple throwback. Do a throwback white jersey for everybody and a throwback color jersey for everybody, and then you can play them every week. Well, get a bit sick for every week, but I like the idea of having a dedicated week or two every couple of months. Be nice.
Yeah, I think so. And in fact, you would actually need one color jersey and one white jersey, wouldn't you, if there was 2 potential weekends? Because you need that white versus color thing that they kind of tend to do as well. So yeah, like I say, get it done because it's right there for you all to make loads of money and also look really good while you're doing it. And who doesn't want that? So let's move into the final sort of section of the pod and just go through our Monday Night Football predictions with Tayyib's Lions welcoming in the Raiders. Just really, really brief one from a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, we did the pod last week, but we had Chargers at Dallas. You guys got a point because you both went for the Cowboys to win. I got no point, but with just never having the ball late on, it was right there for me to get the exact prediction of my score and also just never to have a game-winning drive. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered really last week, but I just wanted to get that in there that I nearly got a full house. Cool story. Anyway, let's move on into Lions at Raiders. Tayyib, start us off because obviously it's your team.
Oh, I hate this. Do you know what it is? If I was asked to like predict Lions seasons, like the Lions would end up with like 5 wins all the time, and like the Packers would go 17-0. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like how my mind is engineered to work. I don't know. Do you know what it is? Because like the Lions probably going to have 3 of their starting offensive linemen injured and out. David Montgomery's already out, so like they are banged up. Max Crosby's pretty fired up. He's from Michigan. He's a Lions fan. Like he's a Lions diehard, is what we've been reading in the pre-match stuff. But I feel like when the Raiders, like they've had like all these clear the air talks with Josh McDaniels and things like that, like we see it in other sports, sometimes these things don't really go well. And they got smashed last week. Garoppolo's back, but how fit is he with that back injury? I think the Lions will win. I think they'll win 24-13.
24-13. Right, putting that
Yeah.
on the sheet. And what about a prop of some description? Who's gonna
I'll go. It's a weird one because again, like Lions are kind of down to the bare bones. I'll go Sam Laporta 2 receiving touchdowns and to be like lead the team in receptions.
2 TDs and lead the team? Willow, what about yourself? What are you saying?
Yeah, I forgot to write this one down. Apologies. I'll go with the Lions to win 28-16. I don't think the Raiders are very good. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is very good. I think the Lions are pretty good, but like you say, they've got some injuries themselves. Can we go Jared Goff 2 rushing touchdowns? How's that for spicy? Yeah.
That's the spiciest take of the pod so far, I would say.
Yeah, you'll do it.
From a cumulative 1 yard, potentially, something like that. Yeah, I'm going to make it a full house. Lions. I mean, it's going to be quite easy. I understand what you're saying today about the Lions defensive linemen, but the pass rush that the Raiders have is Max Crosby, and that's it. So I'm going to say it's actually going to be a bit of a blowout. I'm going to say 34-7 to the Lions. I know you'll hate that because I'm saying you're going to win quite easily. And I'm going to go for Jahmyr Gibbs to get 150 all-purpose yards because I know that obviously those injuries are hitting. Obviously, David Montgomery's not playing. So, yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, 150 all-purpose yards. And a big win for Detroit. And, it's kind of that'd put you top of the North, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we're still top of the North. Yeah. So we are still top. We'll be in the 6-2 club. I think that would mean we'd be the second seed. Yeah, so we'd be the second seed in the NFC. With a win tonight. But it's so jumbled up. Like Seattle are right in the mix. Philly won't go away. Dallas are kind of weird in that they smash teams and then sometimes they play really poorly themselves. But do you know what it is? Like through 8 weeks, I can't remember a season where like so much weirdness has happened. Like the Bills beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins put 70 points on the Broncos. The Broncos held the great Patrick Mahomes to 9 points. And yet the Bills also lost to New England and almost lost to the Giants. Do you know what I mean? Like it just like none of it really makes any sense at the moment. But all you can do is keep winning your own game.
I wonder what the weird like they beat them circle would look like now. I don't know. That'd be good for someone to put together.
Do you know what it is? I always
you know what I mean? I don't know if I described it very well.
I always love doing that in our football. Like I'm the Wigan beat Man City. I'm like, does that mean Wigan are better than Man City now? Do you know what I mean? Like I love all that stuff. Like I love that. Like yeah, but it's that kind of season. Everything's kind of jumbled up. The Texans beat the Jaguars. The Jaguars look like really, really good. Like none of it really kind of makes sense. Saints scored 30 points out of nowhere. Like it kind of just doesn't add up. Like it's just bizarre as a week to week thing. It's just kind of strange.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, with that, we'll wrap us up for this week. So yeah, pop over to TheTouchdown.co.uk. We've got a bunch of content NFL wise, usual midweek, Wednesday and Tuesday madness. You know, wins and losers, 5 wide from Willow, next gen stats, all that sort of good stuff, and obviously the college guys. And obviously we've got the Canadian Football League covered as well over here at the Touchdown. Go over, subscribe to this pod. Obviously got a bit of video content coming out every single week, and we'll just be ramping that up as the things like the draft kick in and further college content comes out. So, like I say, stick with us, give us a follow on your socials, on your YouTube and things like that. Yeah, that'll do us for this week, and we'll see you next time.